Hello, everybody. Great to be here. Now, I'm a pretty recent addition to the agenda. Nevertheless, thank you, Sustainability Live, for having me, and thank you to all of you who are staying. I do appreciate it. This is a great opportunity to share with you some of the Carbon Trust's reflections on the pathway to achieving an inclusive and prosperous global energy transition. So climate change is clearly not a case of if and when. It's happening now, and we're seeing it play out real time on the news on a daily basis, albeit recently dislodged from the headlines by other urgent world events. The world is experiencing an energy revolution. By 2050, renewables will likely supply 90% of electricity. But how do we get there quicker? How do we get there cheaper? And how do we get there more inclusively? This challenge is absolutely fundamental to the Carbon Trust. We're on a mission to accelerate the move to a decarbonised future. With offices around the world and 400 climate change experts, we've spent the last 20 years working on net zero and decarbonisation issues, helping organisations and governments navigate a just transition that ensures economic prosperity and energy security. So the Carbon Trust is now in its third decade of helping to drive climate action through partnerships, expertise, and insight. And in that time, you can imagine we've seen many ups and downs. I've been at the Carbon Trust 22 years and have seen many ups and downs. Nevertheless, we've been privileged to work on many impactful projects globally, which have enabled us to see under the bonnet of what it takes to drive action and coordinated efforts that is required. So the energy transition is not an insurmountable challenge, but an opportunity to redefine how power is developed, distributed, shared in a sustainable way. So there is no doubt that climate change is facing a very challenging time. But there are many successes to keep us optimistic. Through our collaborations with hundreds of major corporates, we've helped to reduce carbon footprints and embed sustainability into supply chains. Because the transition isn't just about energy production, it's about every link in the system working together and ensuring demand is part of the solution. So this is relevant to every one of you in this room. Key to how we do what we do is to build partnerships and blend finance across governments, multilateral development banks, increasingly philanthropy and industry. And this is the only way that we're going to make a move to a global energy transition in the right way. We've seen absolutely dramatic acceleration in renewable deployment. Since 2008, through our work in offshore wind, we've helped drive down the costs and accelerate worldwide collaboration with 25 of the world's leading developers across 34 countries. And in the UK alone, offshore wind costs have fallen by 70% in the last 10 years, making it one of the cheapest sources of new power. The Crown Estate have been an absolutely fundamental partner in that success. We are working really, really hard with emerging economies around clean investment. Through initiatives like our work with the African Development Bank and the British International Investment, we're supporting governments and investors to scale up renewables in Africa, empowering access to clean energy, helping to ensure a just transition that supports retraining, skills development, and economic development. And we're also tackling the world's addiction to coal head-on. Coal-fired power plants are the single biggest source of greenhouse gas emissions, supplying over a third of global electricity, even though it's the most carbon-intensive fossil fuel. Through our work on the Global Coal Asset Transition Accelerator, we're working in 10 countries around the world to provide support to inform and accelerate the closure and repurposing of coal-fired power plants. But of course, this needs to be absolutely laser-focused on inclusion and the reskilling of communities whose livelihoods are currently dependent on coal. So the world is facing an energy paradox. The urgency to phase out coal and decarbonize power systems is greater than ever to meet 1.5 Paris targets. Economic pressures, energy security concerns, and social realities are slowing this progress, particularly in emerging markets. Trillions of dollars are being mobilized for the energy transition, but countries lack clear, context-specific pathways to shift away from fossil fuels whilst maintaining affordability and reliability. So with that, I wanted to share some of our reflections on the global energy transition to net zero. And it starts where you probably would expect it to, and this has been touched on already today, but we are in an emerging age of electricity. Since 2010, electricity demand has grown twice as fast as total energy demand, and it's projected to continue doing so. Cooling buildings, powering appliances, the electrification of light industries have all added to the rising demand for electrification. A diverse energy system is a resilient one. For a country to successfully and equitably decarbonize, it needs a diverse system that addresses multiple challenges at once, including demand management, efficiency, diversity of renewable energy, without over-reliance on any one energy source. And of course, leadership will be in the willingness to do really difficult things. And we can see this here at home. The UK can demonstrate this leadership by building the infrastructure and power systems to deliver its goal of 95% clean power by 2030. The vision is that 200 billion investment in clean power will lead to more affordable, secure, non-volatile priced energy, while providing the jobs and local community benefits that are fundamental to a stronger economy. But of course, the balance between clean and fossil fuel investments needs to be redressed and fast. Current levels of investment in fossil fuels in comparison to clean energy are around 1-to-1. By 2030, this needs to change to 4-to-1 in favor of clean energy. To support this, governments and development finance institutions in particular need to take a systems approach while also de-risking each component of the power system to crowd in private capital. So a prosperous economy needs renewables, but policies are needed at the local level. Achieving a balance between investment needs and the benefits will require coordinated policy efforts. They will need to factor in universal inclusion in the benefits of the energy transition, but also the genuine cost of reliance on fossil fuels. Pollution from coal-fired power stations is a killer. In South Africa alone, causing over 28,000 premature deaths a year. So this morning we heard discussion of value and how you need to articulate the value to stakeholders. Well, I beg that we factor in the true cost of inaction, including such devastating societal costs when weighing up the return on investment. AI, we talk about this a lot right now, and digital technology can be an enabler for the transition. As a renewable power and storage grows, the grid needs to model supply and demand. AI can help this through complex models covering the whole energy distribution system to a better, smart, optimized grid. This, of course, has to be balanced with the fact that AI currently uses vast amounts of energy and natural resources. So in the long term, a more holistic strategy between energy, AI, and infrastructure needed is vital. A systems approach is clearly needed, but I'm going to come back to that separately. Before I do that, I want to end, my last reflection is on, well, Trump Mark II. Geopolitics matter, of course they matter, and we're all feeling it if we're working in sustainability. But so do economics and so do markets. The US's withdrawal from Paris was expected, but also bruised confidence in the COP process and will no doubt have global repercussions. That said, momentum for the energy transition remains, and there is widespread support from countries, states, regions, philanthropy, doubling down on investments in clean energy. And there is a plurilateralism emerging of countries from the global south and global north that are committed to moving the transition more quickly. Coalitions that cut across sectors' value chains will also help sidestep current and future political tensions that threaten the transition. There will always be political threats that threaten the transition. Market and financial trends, though, are still heading in the right direction. Transitioning to clean energy is still the rational economic choice. So the key challenges then, a decarbonised power system must sit at the heart of every country's transition to net zero. And we collectively need to go faster if we are to reach these goals. But from our work around the world, we hear challenges. What replaces coal? How do I maintain security of supply with renewables? How much energy storage do I need? What jobs are lost? And what kinds of jobs are created? And of course, how much will this all cost? So time and time again, no matter where we work in the world, we field this skepticism that renewables are expensive and unreliable. And many economies simply cannot imagine a world without fossil fuels. And whilst these concerns are similar wherever we go, the challenges look very different. Whether it's addressing load shedding in South Africa, meeting winter heating requirements in Kazakhstan, or having sufficient backup power during the El Nino weather events in Latin America, it's clear that we need to find a solution to this and support countries and regions with planning and implementable actions. So a whole systems approach is needed, and that approach needs to be people-centric. Renewable energy build-out, grid expansion, and coal transition are interconnected. They're dependent on each other. Decisions taken in one will impact the next. The reality is the energy system of the future is a much more interconnected one. To manage variable renewables and increased electrification of demand, energy flexibility becomes absolutely critical as a way of ensuring the energy system is managed efficiently and therefore cost-effectively. However, of course, this system goes well beyond technical optimization. Fundamental to this transition is the interplay with skills development, livelihoods, investment needs, supporting policies and regulations. A comprehensive whole systems approach to analysing the route to a decarbonised power system is therefore essential, but will look very different in different countries. We need to bring all these elements of the system together, translating into clear steps what it means for people, for the economy, and decarbonisation. So we see a gap that needs addressing urgently. Whilst many countries have a plan of sorts, many don't. And many plans are neither comprehensive or urgent, failing to factor in increased energy flexibility, energy efficiency, grid investment, planning required, and of course, that clear focus and consultation with the people who will be affected. Plans must take a people-centric view of the problem and provide clear, actionable steps to begin to undertake the necessary system change at the requisite speed. So in response to these challenges, we're developing our Energy Transition Greenprint as a bottom-up energy transition plan that takes a systems approach to navigating the options available to decarbonise the power sector and set out a clear, actionable implementation plan for governments. Simply put, by taking a systems lens, governments, and with the help of Greenprint, can go faster and cheaper to reaching their NDC goals, illustrating what a reliable, resilient, decarbonised and cost-effective electricity system could look like based on evidence and, critically, the actionable steps required to achieve it. So Greenprint will acknowledge that each country is starting from its own place with its own mix and potential energy resources, climate and existing infrastructure. On that basis alone will it set out the solutions required. Greenprint will determine the wider enabling factors, including supporting policies, regulations, and importantly, the systems operation required to make the future electricity system work. A key objective is to lay out the broadest socioeconomic case for the transition. What does this mean for jobs, livelihoods, investment, and energy costs? And of course, in many places in the world, access to clean energy. Greenprint will bring all these factors together to outline the opportunity that the energy transition presents for people and the economy, and an implementation plan that will shift the narrative to one of people prosperity, not cost. So we're currently in the process of discussing with governments around the world, with development banks, with philanthropy and industry, how they can take part and collaborate with the Carbon Trust in taking forwards the energy transition Greenprint. So I'd like to finish by sharing that we are in this together. We're looking for funders to support and shape our ambition and to align and accelerate their own decarbonisation goals and objectives. We're reaching out to governments around the world who are willing to go on this journey together to navigate their own energy transition faster and cheaper. As this is a bottom-up, people-focused initiative, we're looking for partners, and in particular on-the-ground partners, who will be well-placed to bring data, insights, and connections. And of course, we're looking for feedback and for support from all of you who all have your own role in moving this forwards. So I'd like to thank you for listening. I'd like to encourage you to get in contact with myself at the Carbon Trust. I am Managing Director of Programs and Innovation. I'm joined here by my colleague Isabel. Where are you, Isabel? Isabel's waving at the back. Please do grab Isabel if you can't find me. Please do get in contact with us. And thank you for having me. That's everything from me. Thank you.
We so don't have the time, but are there any questions in the room that want to touch on the points Richard's been making? You've escaped scot-free, except one from me, which is, I listened to your presentation. It's a huge call to action. You set out what we in the room, what you would like, how you would like we in the room to get involved with you. But you have this global perspective, and many of the organisations in the room and maybe watching online don't have a global perspective. Is it the case that what they're doing simply contributes as a small building block, or do they need to change their focus somehow?
So I believe that with the global energy transition and broader pathway to net zero, I think it's a very important, tightly bound ecosystem. And I think everybody in this room, every organization that is likely to attend an event like this, has their own valuable contribution to make to this ecosystem. I think one thing we often hear is, why should the UK bother trying to lead? We're merely 1% of global emissions. And it's true that whatever China, India, dare I say the US choose to do will have profound implications for the speed of how we can move this forwards. But we also know that we're deeply interconnected in terms of the global energy transition. We know that we're all going to be affected, and all of our children's children will all be affected. But also we know that there's very, very significant benefits to first mover advantage. And the UK, as a hub of sustainable innovation, of sustainability expertise, sustainable finance, it's a profoundly important role that we are playing in the UK around the world. And trust me, we introduce UK businesses around the world on a daily basis as part of what we do, forging those links, building those bridges between UK expertise and global expertise and making that work. So I think there's something deeply important for everybody to contribute, whether it's immediately obvious to them or not.
Okay, Richard, with that, thank you very much indeed. Richard Rugg from the Carbon Trust, and you'll be outside for further chats.
Thank you.
Super.